Welcome to the Cotton Club Radio. I'm your host, Cotton Club. What's going on with the family? I hope everybody's doing good and everybody's blessed. And I want to get straight into this one. Today's episode is going to be called Lineage Business. Why do I call this Lineage Business? Because right now, family, we're in the midst of a delineation movement and a Black Renaissance. The Black Renaissance is coming from the awakening that Black Americans are having in 2025. This awakening began about 5 years ago with the reparations movement. And Black Americans were beginning to understand that not a lot of people supported reparation. And obviously, we know white people weren't going to support reparations in large numbers. But we started to realize that a lot of melanated immigrants or people from immigrant backgrounds didn't support reparations for Black Americans. So we had to backtrack and ask ourselves, who are our allies? Because there were many people on reparations rallies. Many of them were purposely trying to crash out on these reparation rallies. And come to find out, many of these people were unqualified for reparations. Black Americans on one end had to make a decision. And that decision was delineation, family. Well, how do we measure those who come from an immigrant background versus many of us who come from chattel slavery in this country? And that intersection was, in my opinion, the beginning of delineation 5 years ago, with a lot of people from foreign backgrounds crashing out our reparations task force. It had to be done. Delineation was necessary. It had to be distinguishable. Who were qualified for reparations, family? You were having, the Democrats, they allowed 20 million illegals into the country. So you were having literally Africans just getting here 3, 4, 5 months, a year, claiming they were African American. That started to cause a conflict with Black Americans who historically have been classified African American. Well, how can someone from the Congo, Senegalese, Kenya, East Africa, etc., come here and classify as African American? And they're not the same as us, those who descend from chattel slavery. So this conflict, family, sparked off what we know now as the delineation movement. And its delineation movement is simple. It's those who come from chattel slavery in America distinguishing themselves in their own ethnic identity as those who are owed and entitled to reparations because their forebearers were enchained, beaten, whipped, enslaved, and worked till death for multiple generations in this country, family. So we have to understand that lineage business is necessary. And though it may seem divisive, it is divisive in a way because we have to divide and single out those who are entitled to reparations in this country. But let's be fair, all groups have been divisive, okay? In fact, division in modern terms is synonymous with culture. When you have different cultures, there's going to be division. People do things differently, okay? And division doesn't need to be bad. You understand? At the end of the day, there are many people who are in this country who come from a foreign background, and when they get here, they're very divisive because they want to protect their culture. They want to preserve their culture. And that's understandable. But when Black Americans do it, then all of a sudden there's this major conflict. So we need to stop with these double standards. When we do it, it's a problem, but when you do it, it's normalized. That has to stop. And when we're talking about lineage business, we're talking about ancestry, family. It's very important to respect the fact that those who descend from this country, who built this country, let's be clear, Black Americans built this country. Our ancestors were worked till death and maldistributed wealth, family. The wealth that their forebearers should have gotten, they were never gotten. So it's on us to pick up where they left off and make sure that debt is compensated. So lineage business is that, family. It's the fact that we're coming to collect where our ancestors left off, okay? This is historical. This is history in the making. No other movement in the history of America emphasized delineation like the delineation movement in 25. family. I respect it. It's necessary. And to me, reparations without delineation is obsolete. It does not work. It doesn't work. You need delineation if you're going to get reparations. Without it, it's obsolete. It doesn't work, family. You cannot operate on flat blackness when we're talking about reparations. It just doesn't make any sense. Flat blackness was something that was used during the 60s and the 70s, and it was necessary in its time where Black Americans were fighting for our rights, and we were fighting for global rights, let's be clear. You understand? Because one thing about Black Americans, we were never in this for ourselves. We were in this for the whole diaspora. We were in this for Africa. The problem is, many people started coming over here, while some were our allies. Too many were coming over here being very deceptive and being very rude and disingenuous and disrespectful and siding with our colonial adversaries. Many of these immigrants would get into positions of power and say things like, we don't need Black History Month, knowing well and right that it was not their forebearers who fought to preserve their history and needed a Black History Month because we were in a predominantly YT society. You understand? So this is what we're dealing with here. This is why delineation was necessary. And yes, it is quite divisive. And it's good division, to be honest with you. It's good division. You understand? I believe there's good division and bad division, you know? Yeah, there's lines should be drawn in the sand. You understand? If you're about nothing, stay away from me. I don't want to be near you. That's division. I guess I'm being divisive. If you're ignorant, I don't want to be around you. I don't want you around me. That's divisive. You understand? And if you're acting like a cancer, I don't want you around me. You understand? So we have to understand that there are many people who are actively against reparations, and they look like me. Why would you be a melanated person against reparations for Black Americans? Why would you be against that? You understand? That doesn't make any sense. When reparations for Black Americans starts the domino effect. We get reparations here, it begins to trickle everywhere. Black Americans are the trendsetters. We set a trend of reparations, the world changes. You understand? So the fact that there are melanated people here in our country who are actively fighting against reparations for Black Americans, where they say cut off your nose to spite your face. You understand? It doesn't make any sense. Some people just prefer to be a buffer over Black Americans and not an ally. And I'm glad to say, family, we don't need any buffer classes. You understand? We don't need any buffer classes, and we don't need people over here with a buffer class mentality. What's a buffer class mentality? A buffer class mentality is that of a modern day caste system where people just come over here and just side with our enemies and assume their place in society over us. In a modern day caste system. Either they're trying to be the model minority with the Asian community, or just trying to use their European likeness to assert YT dominance over Black people like the Hispanics do. Many of them do. Or they just do open white supremacy like we know many of the YTs do. All in all, or they come here and try to pull rank like many Africans do. Or you're African American, but we're the real Africans. We have to start keeping it funky, family, and stop playing games. Because this delineation movement didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't start from nothing. Everybody's acting dumb, like they don't know what caused the delineation movement. Why are Black Americans on Lineage Business? Why are Black Americans looking at their lineage here in America and saying, you know what, we've been here for 25 generations. We're American. When do we stop being African if we've been here for 20 generations? We have no African language. We have no African religion. We have no African traditions. We have no African customs. All of what we know is American. Everything we do is American. When do we start being American and stop being African? And this is no knock to African people. But they know we're not African. They call us Akatas. Okay? They call us Akata, wild cat, or whatever. You understand? So there's no need to pretend. People like to say pretendian or pretendy African. I don't want to be a pretend African. I'm not going to be a pretend African. So when we're talking about lineage business, we're looking at our ancestors here. We're looking at what they carved out of nothing here. And we're deciding that that's worth fighting for, family. That's worth fighting for. Why not? Who told you that your ancestors were in Africa? My ancestors are from here, family. I got love for Africans. I got love for my Caribbean peoples. I got love for everybody. But I got love for me too. And I got love for my peoples here too. And I'm tired of seeing people come here and openly be against what's best for my people. I'm starting to realize that what's best for Black Americans is starting to look like people don't assume it's best for them. Like, for an example, reparations. Why, when I say we need reparations, everybody look at that as like, no reparations. No, you don't need reparations. What? Have you studied Black American history, or do you just get over here and assume your buffer class position and you don't care about Black Americans and our plight? Because that's what it's seeming like. It seems like these people genuinely do not care. They're not here to care. They're here to take and extract resources as much as possible and can care less about how you feel about it. I want to break it down to the nitty gritty, family. I want to take it a step deeper. Lineage, but they miss one important factor. One important factor. Bloodlines. Black Americans carry a very unique bloodline in the Americas, family. We are an amalgamation, Africans, indigenous, and yes, many of us don't want to talk about it, but even some European. A specific combination that's very unique to the Americas, to North America. In this 500-year period, our mixture created something totally different than anywhere else. If you go to Brazil, those people are a mixture of Portuguese, African, and indigenous. If you go to Jamaica, those people are a mixture of British, they're a mixture of Carib Indians, and they're a mixture of some other Indians that came to the island and some Chinese. They're a mixture. They even have terms out there that they call a coolie, a mixed person. In America, we have our own distinct. We're colored. You understand? Our colored and Negro is their coolie. They have their own unique mixture in Jamaica. People like to play dumb. I've heard people say things like, "Oh, how do you know who's Black American and this and that? You can't, if you take a DNA test, it's going to say Africa." No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not going to say Africa solely. No, it's not. If I take a DNA test, yes, there will be some African DNA there, but there will be some indigenous DNA there. There will be some European DNA there. There may be some Chinese DNA there, but it ain't just going to be solely African DNA. And that's the difference nobody's talking about. That's what nobody wants to mention, is that the Black American is a conglomerate of different races, of different people, specifically created here in North America, which makes our roots very unique. I'll tell you another thing. A lot of people like to talk about DNA. Let's talk about the Mongolian spots. These are birthmarks that Black Americans carry 96%. These specific types of birthmarks they call Mongolian spots, Mongolian birthmarks. Guess who else carries these birthmarks in a high rate? Native Americans, red Native Americans. They carry Mongolian spots, what they call Mongolian birthmarks, at an 80 to 90% rate. Black Americans carry these same birthmarks at a 96% rate. Only us, the Native Red American and the Black American, what they call African American, what we now call foundational Black American, only us carry these rates at this level, at this high, these specific birthmarks. The Red Native American and the Black American, foundational Black American, us at a 96% rate with these Mongolian birthmarks, and the Red Native American with a 90% rate. No other tribe in Africa carries this birthmark as high. I think there's like one tribe, and it's like somewhere in East Africa, and they carry it, but it's very low in percentage. So unless all of us came from this, secluded area, tribe in East Africa, which we know that's not true, only one thing can be true. Black Americans are indigenous to this land as well. Nobody wants to talk about that. Why people don't talk about that, I don't know, family. But that's a very important factor that a lot of people skip around on. And if that is talked about more, I think people would understand that more. People have to do their research. When we're talking about lineage business, lineage ancestry, business, understanding what we have to build upon, operate and construct and understand. This is what we're talking about. The narrow path to reparations is delineation first, to specify who we are, identify who we are. And family, we're on the right track. And anyone who is against it is either in fear of their buffer class being their buffer class being taken, and they can't be no buffer class over us no more. They're in fear that we might topple that paradigm. Or maybe there's some kind of business that's connected to Black Americans, like Pan-Africanism. Yeah, do you want me to talk about that, family? The business of Pan-Africanism and how that's been bamboozling us for the last 100 years. 60 years to be more specific. Right? The business of Pan-Africanism selling us this myth about global African unity that has never happened, that we were the only ones willing to do. We were the only ones willing to sacrifice our identity for a global identity that no one else wanted to cooperate with. No one else wanted to buy into the Pan-Africanism. It was a one-sided failure, family. Unfortunately. We actually thought it may work, family. We really did. But the problem is that how can we unite with people who are not even united, family? We look at Africa, and no disrespect, we got a lot of love for Africa. But Africa is carved up into gazillion tribes, family. Gazillion. I mean, you look at Nigeria right now, they're at war, family. A religious war. Right now in Nigeria, they're at war over Christianity, a religion that was imposed on them anyway. And they're at war deleting each other in mass amounts, family. Right now, Africa is hurting. They need to do some lineage business on their own, to be honest with you. So, and we'll allow them that space to develop. We won't get in their affairs. You can guarantee that. We won't go over there trying to tell them what they need and what they don't need. We won't go over there and get in their government and side with the Chinese. That's what we won't do. You understand? We're not going to go over there and say, yeah, it looks like the Chinese are over here. And you know what? You guys don't deserve these diamonds because you don't appreciate them. So, maybe the Chinese should get them because the Chinese will do something with them. We don't go over there and say that the Africans are lazy because they have trillions of dollars of diamonds underneath their feet. Are they lazy? Are they incompetent? We don't do that because we understand that even though they are going through what they're going through, we should always have empathy for people with melanin. But at the same time, we're not going to be floor mats and we're not going to be punching bags. And we're not going to punch down on them because we can see the conditions they're living in. But we're not going to let them disrespect us at all. You understand what I'm saying, family? So when breaking down this lineage business, I want you all to understand this. If not for the delineation movement, we are buried and forgotten. We cannot continue to have 20 million foreigners dumped on top of us, family. We can't do this another 50 years. We can't survive without protection, okay? And solidarity and reparations to protect ourselves from this onslaught. Right now, fight for reparations so we can protect our communities and start to build our communities. Because if we do not do that, family, these other people will continue to come here, drain our resources, look out for each other, put themselves in positions of power, and work against us, family. Do you understand what I'm telling you? If this is about survival of the fittest, we can't survive another 50 years of 20 millions and millions and millions of people being dumped into our communities, family, with no resources. You understand? Unlike the red Native Americans, they're on reservations. They're getting government funding. They have their own schools. They have their own police to protect their communities. We don't have that. They try to amalgamate us into society to water us down and to wipe us out. There's no way that a person who got here yesterday can check off on a sheet as an African American, and that's supposed to mean the same thing as my family, and my family been here for 400 years. And we supposed to be the same. If that's not deliberate erasure, then I don't know what is. That's deliberate erasure. And this is why lineage business is key to us maintaining ourselves, protecting ourselves, and preserving ourselves. We don't need to be against anyone. In fact, we can love everybody. But we can love ourselves just a little bit more. And ain't nothing wrong with that because everybody do it. Everybody do it. Everybody come here and put their people ahead of everyone else. If you're at work, I guarantee you, if you have a Hispanic supervisor, most of the people there working under him are Hispanic. Wherever they go, they monopolize. We know this. All right, they monopolize wherever they go. They monopolize that. They monopolize it and they hire their own. We just recently, think about it. Within the last few years, you started to hear the emergence of buy black. Us having to reinforce that. Having to reinforce, yo, maybe we should start to buy from each other instead of everyone else. Because everybody else is buying from themselves and they not buying from us. So we're going out of business. So maybe we need to start buying from each other. You understand? We continue to get smarter, but time is of the essence, family. Time. We're doing, notice, family, we're doing things in the right time. The universe is working with us. The universe is working with us. You understand? The delineation movement came at the perfect time where we begin to distinguish ourselves after an onslaught of immigration and people being dumped on top of us. And we're starting to now saying, hold on. We need to know who's who. Because everybody's coming over here to claim that they us so they can benefit off of what we do. So we need to draw a line and say, hold on, family. Hold on. I get it. No disrespect. But you dudes said y'all not black. You said you was Jamaican. And you said you was Dominican. So we black. You understand? And we black first. You understand, family? A lot of these groups are their nationality first. And then they black. They Jamaican, then they black. They African, then they black. They Haitian, then they black. Black Americans are the only group of people who say, nah, we black. We just black, bro. We black. And these people think we slow. They think we slow. They talk about us. Oh, these people, they think black is just a color. How you gonna be just a color? Yeah, he said he's black. They make fun of us. They didn't understand that we were 10 steps ahead of them. We know black is a color. But we also understand that white supremacy made all you is black. Under white supremacy, we all black. We know that. You understand? We understand that. We know that. They didn't understand that. So even in their ignorance, you can see where they were being condescending and narcissistic and acting like we stupid and we don't know that black is a color. We understood it that it was the unification belt. It was an identifier. You understand? It represented melanin. Yeah, we know that, these terms are interchangeable. We've been Negro, we've been colored, we've been African American, we've been American Indian, we've been foundational Black American. They're all the same. These terms are interchangeable. We black, that's interchangeable. We know this. Okay? We're trying to get you to understand that no matter what you think you are, they see you as being black. And you didn't get it. You didn't understand it. And now it's too late. Because many of us don't care to enlighten you anymore. We just don't care. Now we're on Lineage Business. King. Love. Let your angels sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh. And a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat. Wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? It's for my black souls who really do upset the rest. So they wander through my dreams, please tell me what this means.